Excuse my appearance. This is a real quick live video. I just wanted to add another note because to the interbranch switching and forging names and their actual motivations. Again, no to how the breaching method was part of the answer slash S to where and how those crazy things in American history were value and our value. And so we're going to need hyper journalism too, because they have been had a whole bunch of different natures of wire crime acts and methods and ones to hide them and narratives roles, their pretended motivations, real and ones completely made up, and delusions all juxtaposed, which is why we have to have mandated law followed, and where we have to have disputes about no, and with sequence true, the value of sequence, the value of what is actually simultaneously value is too. So they've been exploiting exceptions and exception nature while they've been making readings of the statutes where the courts and the police forms have crimes with their federal criminals like child abusers leaders before they got caught, and how they involve their kids with sequence shifts and with methods of it. So like New Britain Superior Courts pretended I was brought up their names when they brought up their name. In other words, they're criminally foreign influence readings of statutes at locations so they can exploit that at the interbranch locations where they attach people to fake behavior and fake relativity of sequence true and relativity of what is actually simultaneously recorded roles. So these are things we should understand and have the capability of understanding at the youngest ages. But they have this method where where like for example, the kids of mayors, a whole bunch of people tied to a mayor Gold, and to a Debbie Gold. I don't know what her new last name is, and a legal, and people associated with them intimately in other ways per themselves and per her who pretended conversations with me, speaking through other people who from off campuses, also within executive police forms family, O'Brien family, and houses next to them, recorded then involved with predicate acts that were are brought up involved with the predicate acts and predicate acts methods on off my street recorded uses of name stacking specifically use the sense and sensibilities of little boys and of little girls and of men and women simultaneously, sickly, distinctly, specifically to keep out sickly, non-distinctly from being discerned even by them, because the breaching method was an identity of sophistication here before our founding parents were even born, to make proper treatments of the ground that was with the slavery entrenched in Weathersfield, Connecticut, and Hartford, in New York, in the North, in the South, sickly distinctly was specifically to keep out sickly non-distinctly from being discerned, however. For example, that's increasingly valued because that's what answers what American history was is really about, especially when everyone was criminally foreign influence, treatments of positive and negative, which are simultaneously treatments of identity, which is simultaneously functional by that which we have abridged to math claiming the the logistics of criminally foreign influence, simul delusions raw. For example, it is English that is more so about um, correlation, nature, consciousness. So we have people that are incapable of speaking for consciousness, or incapable of affording that, and how people actually have abilities to speak for consciousness. So, in other words, there's an Eric Jensen who's involved with a Ray Reynolds, who they pretended to know me. They influenced instances with me to make fake exceptions, pretend to know me. The only verbal conversation I had with him was when I was in one instance, and the next day after that, and when I was in, uh, I forgot the name of it, Emerson Williams. I know that's not his name, but it closed. Fuller, I believe. I want to make a mistake. I believe it was a Fuller school, but they closed it. It was a kindergarten, and there's a woman named Harris. I don't know. Also, was one of the ones that then with that school, and there's people next to Webb School who are involved with foreign and domestic military and foreign and domestic, how they have campuses. People from Central Connecticut State University involved with the Jennifer Socia, and all these people on off to like Eric Jensen said that they involved and demonstrated how I never had a conversation with her verbally in my life has something to do with the people on off. There's a whole bunch. There's a judge. At least there are judges from various courts that have been criminally involved with little boys and girls since they were kids, and not for the motivations they were pretending. Again, that's evident, relevant to where and how that's involved with where and how everyone has been replacing the real motivations or relevant motivations where the others are juxtaposed, which is the breaching method. For example, relevant to where and how black/white, that means all colors, and clear values are being having been assigned other values that had nothing to do with that. Just like assigning a 0 or a 1 or a binary number to a to the value of a temporary positive or not location instance. Did we temporarily press A and then S? And in what sequence? In other words, this is what the computer is sensing. The programming language is doing the loop to see what location is positive or negative. And that identity, before it is given an A that is value to a word program or something where we're going to type text, it's given additional identities. Same reason your identity has a whole bunch of identities that are a semi-nature relationship to your complete identity. See, but this actual functioning system by an actual wisdom is being and having been, and actual honesty is being and having been replaced. Per this method, honesty is a positive thing. It can be used as criminalization. Truth can be used for lies. All right. So, in other words, I don't know Eric Jensen. He's one of the ones that they made exceptions, though. There are exceptions where and how I know him on campus and off campus. And where and how I know him on campus, he was one of the ones that were planted, involved with recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed criminally foreign influence roles and uses of the databases at the campuses from off them influenced victim predator reactions, victim reactions, predator only in defense of everyone speaking through other people, where they're also phrasing things criminally and lying about their motivations for that too. They're just calling people names so they can have themselves called names so they can pretend that's the behavior they're against. So they have men and women recorded through time originally in still a whole bunch of different ways, preventing the function by where and how the volume science is itself distinctly as humanity's volume, where we are all one species body, distinctly as how it is the male body, and distinctly as how it is the female body, and distinctly in how this is relevant to the simultaneously, distinctly, not distinctly, and only increasing value of each age distinctly, and non-distinctly because they're by that one hyper relativity and demonstration to us which is really the value of an as, which is really the identity of the hyper simultaneous. Being a group is being a simultaneous nature. Being an identity is being a simultaneous nature. Being a species body is being a simultaneous nature. It's being a sequence nature simultaneously. It's sequence / simultaneous nature, and simultaneous / sequence nature. Relevant to that which is self-generated to the extent we can discern is true always and not denying any exceptions. In fact, with exceptions and exception nature in itself, and demonstration of the same. Anything else, if there's an exception, it's not true. But one identity, in other words, a cell nucleus is not a cell, but it simultaneously is a cell. Cell body, cell nucleus, cell wall. Cell wall is the cell. Even physically, it is other cells too, though. It's half it, semi itself, semi the other cells. And so, no, when we say semi, that's exact. See, math can only simplify or solve, but it can't simplify, solve, and hypersolve. So, in other words, if it can't solve something, in other words, math, tablet class math notes, a YouTube channel called Tablet Class Math. The math instructor notes that we solve problems, but we can only simplify expressions. You could solve expressions too with using hyperconsciousness, using that which is actually true always as a system, not denying any exception nature. Again, it's only identity as a system that has the phenomenon of exception nature and demonstration of the same thing. So the cell body is the cell, except for how it is distinct identity, which can't be a cell and be distinct but one way, which is where the identity of the parts of the cells distinctly share an identity. What is positive to themselves, even when distinctly, it is positive to the rest of the cells, because the cells of a tomato plant, for example, they have no criminal foreign influences. And evolution's fruits and gifts appear from nowhere means. See, but now this is from a tactically denatured Earth system, Earth's distinct, non-distinct, and hyper simultaneously. Positive, also positive unto itself as the identity of the hyper simultaneous. That is only increasing as volume, as value, where value is nature / nature is value. More and more the perfect world is being made, because more and more the hyper perfect world can only help but be increasing value and as made. Hear many pray. So in other words, there are people at Central Connecticut. I don't know. I never had a conversation with Jennifer Socia. There are some judges that were involved with the abuses of little boys and girls, where they use confessions to have their kids exploit where and how on and off the campuses they are used criminally for an influence. For example, the motivations of each identity of integrity or in sophistication, formal identity, ground locations discernible. There are certain type of there are shown roles, as in other words, we have the black, the treatments of black and white / white, Native American / black / white. Those grouped identities, tactically ulterior from how nature has us grouped that way. The breaching method was sickly distinctly against Native Americans having been sustained. The same one sickly distinctly against the colonists. The same way sickly distinctly against all Americans. And then further against Native Americans as value to us, because that came first. So In other words, where inequality, where equality is impossible but one way. In other words, nature demonstrates. The course begins by understanding a breaching method had been applied and sustained against Native Americans. And while it was being sustained against them, they knew it would be its breach. They knew their cause, the breaching method's cause to the negative value nature progressions action natures, as it had already caused negative value nature progressions action natures that made self-valued roles with colonization, tactical ulterior uses and defenses of itself, uses to make positive for itself too. Self-value, criminally foreign influence, uses of the sciences, identities, individually grouped and together, and how actually they are grouped and individually grouped and together. Because, for example, a forever nature is one of the things that constantly the identity of the hypersimultaneous is, distinctly and non-distinctly. A simultaneous nature is another thing it is, distinctly non. Exceptions are how it is a sequence nature. In other words, the simultaneous is the species body. But know how we are. See, we are individual bodies too. Because of how one identity greater than infinity and more finite than zero, how it is generating more and more of its forever nature as more and more identities of what is greater than one to infinity. It is manifest with the temporary / lasting value of that horizon to perception as exception nature and demonstration of the hyperclear and the value of the clear. And where black pupils and whites of eyes are subjects here. The course of things, of which Bach sings. But long, but give it rest, I tell it best. So everything was tactically denatured, specifically to have nature demonstrate the causes of this, being the breaching method. Specifically, the breaching method knew that, for example, people would have to blame the real cause. They would have to counter predicate acts, the real causes of them. They would have to counter mass criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments roles and of negative treatment roles, which are simultaneously identity treatment roles. See, the experts of the maths, plural, they value where and how being and having been obfuscated is how an identity is a nature that is simultaneously relative uses of relativity to what is positive and negative simultaneously. But this is a science that requires the discernment between the difference of criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments and of negative treatments. So, for example, with regards to the Oscars, originally instilled the news media and all the sciences, including the arts, there have been uses of criminally and foreign influence, positive and negative treatments, everyone speaking through others, all exceptions in exception nature and demonstration of the same thing, /S. One of the ways they get away with it, for example, is replacing the short words. Really, our founders wanted and need us to have, and we are capable of having, regarding the predicate acts delivery system method. That is the answer /S to the real causes of where and how black /white were simultaneously employments by the laws that were syntactical conjunctions to the sense and sensibilities, use Jane Austen's phrase, but using it as the human volume science before we come to the uses of it by the authors of English and of the other languages as translated in English. Now, all the languages share the identity of the predicate and the identity of the subject, the main subject. We don't learn there's a main subject, but there is a main subject because there can only be one main verb. And we should learn. One of the reasons we have before this, greater than this, and more finite before this, distinctly, but then also non-distinctly, the identity of the hyper-simultaneous was and is then now manifest. It's how this life is about how something is self-generating as that which is binding all things individual, grouped, and together, as a nature of power and of might that is simultaneously the identity that is the nature of the order of the finite, the smallest finite detail / details. They all connect to this natural system, again, taken from that which is hypernative pure. And see, that's no matter who you are. And if you are hypernative pure, you discern the increasing value of how the native systems in our own are all tactile ulterior from that they were intended to be and revealed capable of being by nature itself before the sciences became criminally foreign influenced. And this is more probable and practical to convict. Again, where and how, another question that should have been answered and understood already, is where and how people could have opinions and convictions and motivations, actual, that would deny all the demonstrations of how the suburbs are tactically denatured. They were tactically denatured before our founders were born, specifically for a torture method, a fact-chipping nature slavery method, an identity slavery method, a value of sequence value slavery method, syntactically, therefore functionally, the value of simultaneous, syntactically, therefore functionally, at all locations. And so as all sense and sensibilities, as all nervous systems, relevant. So these are people that were not only capable of speaking morality, relevant to behavior that leaves out the value of sequence true that came before that. Leaves out the value of criminal insidiousness. For example, where and how people make fake sides and arrays because of the the relativity of the breaching method that had people do that in the past. So there were a whole bunch of boyfriends of little girls that are tied to the daughter of a former Mayor Gold, Debbie Gold, who had them apparently take picture of me standing near them like at a park one time because they were lying about what came before that. People involved with identity theft, frauds, and me in the past that became relevant to where and how people involved right now with wire crimes with Weathersfield Police and the Weathersfield Schools and Central Connecticut State University and Trinity College is involved with this. So I've been asking for a response on Facebook. I asked for a response on YouTube. All exception nature. In other words, these are people simultaneously confessing and demonstrating more roles with the people that live next to me. They used criminally. They even made mothers fight with each other because they painted themselves in the corners because of criminally foreign influence uses of the kids when since there were the programs with the kids and the campuses of the kids. Like the name Cololo. They brought in a whole bunch of people with the name Cololo. The Weathersfield Police also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Scaloros are involved with them, switching and forging names with the name Cololo. Wire crime acts with them. And with the principal sex offender school, child abuser school. It's juxtaposed natures of child abuses, juxtaposed natures of organized crime, juxtaposed natures of criminally foreign influence uses, of where they legitimately have roles with all the elements of the juxtaposed natures of organized crime and narratives. Like, in other words, they have other countries involved with this. It has something to do with the Koreas. Has something to do with how Russians are shared here also. Has something to do with how Ukrainian people are shared here also. God forbid they keep shirking their law and pretending to have had integrity here or there. Everyone came through criminally foreign influence grammar schools, and the roles with that. See, we have to understand differential criminal foreign influence. Debbie Gold and Tim O'Brien, Andrew O'Brien, the executive branches and the kids and their extended family members and the neighbors and the Debbie Gold and her neighbor. In other words, those people. We have to show how they're hyper predators, they're victim predators, and they're having been per their roles with this method that has them pretend passions and emotions and motivations, where and how they are shown the stewards of the 5 volumes of criminal insidiousness, so to speak, relevant to the breaching method. And then further, like, for example, that which is referred to by colonization. All exceptions in exception nature are in demonstration of this. If if someone tries to pretend other, they're going to exhibit positive treatments of positive and of negative and of identity that are criminal insidiousness positive treatments. Like where and how killers, child abusers use truth for lies, value them being and having been used at all locations for lies, their titles, others' identities, their own. Everyone values each other being knaves because at each age of campus, at each nature of campus, at each location of campus, simultaneously, it is at each database location already has coordinated the identities of those locations were shown means to hide their actually recorded natures simultaneously, preemptively, and from things in the past relative to themselves and their family members by filming or speaking. Even honestly, when honest recollections, because they paint sense and sensibilities to arrays that are brought up as instances. Maybe it's the only time you saw someone, and then you hear something that brings up their name, so you're going to remember that instance. This is also they use other people's names with themselves, and they use their officers' names with us, and other people's names with us. Like Eric Mendez. recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. I don't know him at all. There were only two exceptions real fast. They tried to pretend, which is one of the things they do is make exceptions in exception nature with people that don't know you who make statements and confessions and demonstrations that complete others' confessions, demonstrations, recorded of uses of them as roles with recorded on campuses and off campuses recorded collusion / S with and as what can't speak its actual consciousness and afford discern what the short words actually are of wisdom and of honesty. A predicate acts delivery system method employed black / white to meanings assigned values that they did not mean to all locations. And as the nature of all identities of recollection, and or that would be sensed the same way the computers work. This ancient campus was a database relationship before it became criminally foreign influenced. Before our founders were even born, North and South, sickly entrenched, was a criminal re-engineering of the ancient sciences, of the ancient revelations, of the order of science / S, have been led by that which is actually hyper-simultaneous, that which is actually its identity of relationship to itself that's going to cause positive value, nature, progression, and the value of that actually, what's really going to cause positive value, nature, progression, acts, means, evolutions, fruits, and gifts, and means out of nowhere, including especially regarding where and how we are fact, nature is quality / qualities, individually grouped together. So see how the species is a body of individuals. So in other words, they start fights with groups and with the people overtly. In other words, if you try to call up a news place and have a normal conversation with them, they'll change what you say, and the police forms and the courts will just fabricate audio and video with it. So I don't know this Eric Jensen, but the interbranch family members and military ones, they bring their girls around other people specifically for identity theft, fraud, slander roles, where they have to hide uses of lipoaggressions simultaneous for juxtaposed to other motivations, nature, needs, interest. Then they lock girls and boys who then become men and women incapable of affording a quality of fact, keeping nature, and of honesty. These are also people tied to this former Mayor Gold and to his neighbors. I don't know the last name of the girl, Jen, who, for example, tied to Eric Jensen, and all houses along Hangdog Lane and Two Rod Highway had my name used with them. Criminally foreign, in other words, they tried to pretend I know me. Those are the exceptions, and they can't be honest about it. And they were also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by the people that made confess involved with sequence shifts, for example. So some courts, judges, and prosecutors and their family members painted themselves in corners with where and how they have made up motivations and ones they value for real reasons juxtaposed too. So they have they keep how the arrays are really motivated and maintained, blamed on the uses of arrays of opinions they at crime scenes. And then when everyone says things wrong, and they're trying to defend the identity that has roles with it. The FBI has roles, even when it has physical delusions, which is also part of the reason why how they have roles. that are still how they got away with them so long, even though they are so overt / insidious. What are Jim Crow laws about? When people speak, it is evidence. There are evidences, hyper evidential that, for example, one of the things Jim Crow law is about is the worse than criminal incompetence and simultaneous physical delusions and remotely used criminally foreign influenced identities of the FBI individually grouped together, of the CIA, of other countries' legal identities. See, they could have stopped wars before them. They are reliant upon wars because those are some of the pseudo positive and negatives they use to keep excuses and motivations blamed on other things other than themselves, mixed with other apparent and real motivations for evil and insidious positive treatments at locations time relevant to the reception of all data, evidence, sequence value, simultaneous value. What were witch trials and what was in slavery simultaneously? So there's a witch trials place, and there's the place where George Washington had to leave slavery entrenched, but counter-extorted in Wethersfield, Connecticut. And those two places make 4 points. They're also involved with the people involved with wire crimes, mail crimes, drugs crimes, and distinct natures of drugs crimes and uses of that too, which are also means to discern what is actually hyper recorded. For example, these are police forms, and they're acting coaches from Central Connecticut State University are also having coordinated with other departments and with their own been influenced to uses of my name and people from Wethersfield was also coordinated to uses of the corner of Main Street and Church Street in Old Wethersfield. Churches, houses on that street are also the ones brought up by the Wethersfield police with wire crimes, switching, forging names, pretending passions and emotions. Now, these are also people from Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with Wethersfield police chiefs from my town through time, since before I was born, with my street, with the same house /S recorded involved with them with wire crimes and with the principal child abusers campus and with various natures of organized crime on off the Wethersfield town offices through time, and uses of them juxtaposed and how juxtaposed. And on off the where they are now, the police station. It used to be on the Wethersfield town offices. But there are also names involved with that I don't know the names of, that are involved with the people that force you to speak through other people, and you don't even know their names. They also spoke things, you know. So in other words, the families that answered the police for the Wethersfield police through time and the fire departments are also have been used remotely. And there's all kind of like Washington, D.C. and World Trade Center stuff that was criminally foreign influence before the World Trade Center attack. They also have Afghanistan families involved, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They speak through the Wethersfield police cliques that are criminally foreign influence. In other words, they did this with my grammar school. Then they had to hide life progressions when I was in middle school. And they're doing it by putting people in, they're having interactions with kids about other kids. And they don't even know those other kids. And they're making fake exceptions too. So that, in other words, that are in demonstration of the same thing, but no one's putting anything on paper legitimately. No one's speaking anything legitimately because of how coordinated were the interests of overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and other natures of insidiousness with the interbranch, differentially criminally foreign influence, differentially increasingly per other motivations, natures, needs, interests than the order which has been using it, which is another method in nature of organized crime, that breaching method, which uses all that corruption shown need to hide lies preemptively and from the past by uses of all identity ground locations like parks. So people at each of the campuses I went to are people recorded, confessed, and demonstrated have been roles with various natures of federal crime and child abuses, and natures of identity theft, fraud, slanders, and evidence reception, racketeering, and like, for example, federal rules of evidences, crimes, planting roles online and with the news media as their sources, and as the people involved with the buildings next to Fox Connecticut News and the locations next to Fox Connecticut News and uses of them, and then uses of that again further, and next to WFSB. They also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed they use such as evidence to pretend that's why they don't like us. All exceptions in exception nature, like other evidence they use, are in demonstration of the same thing. It's criminally foreign influenced evidences. So they are making people say behavior is good or bad, and that a court should decide on it because of how they've been getting away with, collusion/S against the kids of each age of fact, nature, sickly distinctly. The campuses A through Z are sickly distinctly victim predators. Not one of them liberated. If one campus was allowed free speech and free nature, it would come to the nature would show us the answers. And it would show us how to get through where and how people are going to pretend they don't understand us as representatives of humanity as you already being and having been used, where black and white was functional for things and meanings that had nothing to do with it. And so that theory they want to show us as a gaming system, trying to mimic nature. So they tell the kids, "Oh, this is world creation. We're going to make a world. We're going to make with the computer. You all need to follow the original memory system, positive and value, positive and negative, positive slash identity slash negative, and negative slash positive slash no, it's a value system. We can put on paper how distinctly, for example, the human volume is one volume, and it has one science that it will only stay increasingly its identity of relationship to itself and the value of that. Alpha and Omega in the physical male body, in the physical female body manifest are exceptions in exception nature in demonstration of the same thing, /S, which simultaneously demonstrates what exceptions in exception nature is about. So actors have been employed to pretend exception, they pretend they are someone, except how they are not. They pretend their nature, except how they are not. And those employments, so now they're speaking about acting, speaking about teachers. The hyper-simultaneous, that which was self-generating before we came here, the perfect science. It is perfect acts. The Earth has a distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous relationship to the rest of space/existence. That is hyper special, and that hyper speciality is being forced from here, lethal IDs, because we are no longer uses of the perfected system revealed before the sciences became criminally foreign influenced. Means to be led by the hyper invisible identity, its identity of relationship to itself, and the only increasing value of that. In other words, so they have the people who answer the phones at networks who play stupid and who are directed to cover to ignore things and hide things, while simultaneously being stacked are roles with more names, with originally still juxtaposed natures of distinct organized crime against each age of fact treatment nature's correlation nature, to keep blamed on other things others ourselves, the real causes of negative value nature progressive acts natures. All their locations, everything, keep people using logic. Well, I didn't cause it, as victim predators. Because you guys are speaking for positive and negative, and you're being encouraged to speak for positive and negative by criminal and ceaseless natures of positive treatments and negative treatments and collusion. You have teachers knocking people behind their backs and to their faces, criminally to pretend things that came before that true. See, in other words, one of the things that was involved with this originally is still the differential but increasing criminal foreign influence of everybody, including the branches of government's locations, every individual grouped in together. This knew that they would be like the overt criminal enterprises with shared criminally foreign influence uses the campuses with the interbranch and the military. Little identity theft, fraud, slander clicks and rackets and methods roles. So respond for the they're like little, I don't know. You guys starting fights so you can sequence shift about the responses. So you can keep where and how people need to raise their voice and where and how people need to be allowed calm means to demonstrate predicate acts against ourselves and other citizens, sickly distinctly against ourselves and against other citizens, and more importantly, how sickly non-distinctly is having been prevented from being discerned, even though it is increasingly in demonstration to us. For example, as the increasing value of the relevance of the breaching method as that which gave order to all those individual and grouped crazy sick laws behind witch trials and or their narratives, behind the slavery as we know it existed and the narratives juxtaposed, for example. And we're dealing with what? Engineered such to make debates about data reception, sequence value reception, evidence perception, identity perception, the value of what is simultaneous perception, fighting about things as styles fighting with each other that can be measured and maintained. Collusion /S with where and how what our founders left us and how they left us directed to be able to counter the left entrenched nature of the law possession method, physics of the law possession method, identities of the law possession method, singular. That was and is exploiting how nature itself would keeps that group and demonstration. We are tactical ulterior from the system that causes positive and negative value nature progressions, acts, nature's here. And we have all kinds of systems overtly criminally and foreign influenced, private, left criminally foreign influenced, and governments individually grouped and together, still self-valued criminally foreign influenced. For example, all that per relevance of locations, areas, and states only having been known, only having been told to value criminal and ceaseless natures of positive treatment, sequence treatments, simultaneous treatment. So please get me a response for Connecticut Interbranch. You can't communicate with them over the phones. And they fabricate emails and replace what's actually recorded over Facebook Now they caught themselves pretending to be against behavior criminally. And so they need to hide. And they've been using the people who answer the phones as trained to be sickly, distinctly, originally still, certain type of breaching method tools. By that method, that was sophistication here, that before our founding parents were born, for the method of laws as methods of complete possession to sense and to hurt anyone or anything that would try to bring people individually grouped together to and as anything that could not be sensed, trying to do that. So when they could sense that, then they would go in and hurt the people individually grouped together and keep the place used remotely. Not just colonization, not just everyone colonized, but colonization used remotely too, individually grouped and together. The colonization nations, the species body, self-valued roles, tactical terror, even if through defenses of itself, uses of simultaneously criminally foreign influence fact treatments. This knew that modern countries will only be able to counter criminal enterprises by grouping them wrong, by self-valuing roles with how they're where and how the overt criminal enterprises and the private ones were propagated by a breaching method that has complete control over them, just the same way they had complete control over and have complete control over all natures of justices through their identity ground locations uses. Free speech follow mandated law for Connecticut interbranch now. Governor Malloy and Maine College, please respond. They lied to you with the principal child abusers campus. More people involved with Maine with psychology in Hartford Hospital and military also, foreign and domestic. People with Afghanistan with psychiatrists, with the Connecticut military, involved with the FBI too, with Afghanistan families with planting fake things on campuses and off campuses, with overt criminal enterprises, not legitimately, with plain closed police forms and programs with the with the agencies with the Los Salitos, on and off St. Yukon, on and off Trinity College, on and off news articles, which are syntactical recollections of the past and of what is to come that are criminally foreign influence, uses of what is involved here. That, for example, relative to their uses of their apparent motivations, but the actual ones with memory, these are the investigators of the internet and the policings of the various and the leaders of the various departments at colleges and universities and of teachers, principals, and things like that. Their family members are being and having been used remotely. It's a method that forces everyone to speak through others. So, and then they pretend things about other people's emotions and passions. So that's another thing you saw. They do things and make people describe other people's emotions and passions because they're already being and having been collusion against each age of fact treatment nature sickly distinctly. So they needed to hide how sickly non-distinctly. So they had to value roles within as styles. They need to hide exactly what the breaching method /S through our own needs to hide. So to discuss the discernments, how to discern the assignments of black/white that were ulterior from black/white, we have to use as evidence actually standing uses of black/white identities. And this method knew that we would have to. So it has the black kids and adults of Wethersfield /white employed to switching names and forging names and natures of identity theft, fraud, slanders, roles, and pretended motivations, not liking people because of A, therefore B. This person's prejudiced. Their sequence, their need to say whatever from backgrounds. Roles of remote uses of the state judicial branch offices, remote uses of the state prison offices in Hartford, is recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with the intelligence community, with businesses and houses next to Central Connecticut State University, and next to Trinity College, also involved. People involved on off Quinnipiac University, involved with the wire crime acts and methods, identity thefts and frauds with these people that go back to Two-Rod Highway with identity theft frauds instances, sequence shifts, tried to make fake exceptions pretending to know me. There are ties between them. We have a completely criminally foreign influence, delusions, wrought intelligence community. You have none. Vaccine is fine.